Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
They were already laughing before I even got to my seat. I'd just finished greeting a few cousins near the bar when I heard my younger brother Greg's voice boom across the room. "Hey, Michelle's here. Maybe she can explain what an education consultant even is. Or is it still a secret because of those confidential book club meetings?" People chuckled. Someone clapped. I froze, halfway through sitting down at the table near the buffet. "My name's Michelle. I'm 38 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. The party was for my dad's retirement. 42 years as a high school principal. The country club was packed with family, old coworkers, neighbors, and former students. I didn't know half the people there, but Greg made damn sure they all turned to look at me. "Michelle's probably working at a tiny library somewhere in the woods," he said, grinning, "stacking books and calling it strategy." More laughter. I pulled out my chair, sat down, and stared at the pasta salad on my plate. I kept my face straight, just nodded politely at a few people around me. My phone buzzed in my lap. 2 missed calls. Dr. Renee Caldwell, director of the National Literacy Commission. Before I could react, my cousin Jamie leaned over with a smirk. "Bet it's the pizza guy calling for directions." The whole table cracked up again. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I didn't say a word, just took a bite of the pasta salad and looked back down at my phone. There was a new voicemail from Dr. Caldwell. I didn't listen to it. Not yet. Across the table, Greg kept going. "I mean, come on, what is it you actually do, Michelle?" he said, loud enough for everyone around us to hear. "You always say you can't talk about it. I think you just don't want to admit you work at a middle school or something." Someone added, "Didn't she say last Christmas she was helping the government?" Another cousin chimed in. "Yeah, I remember that. It was some vague thing about federal policy, right? Like what, teaching the president how to read?" I reached for my water glass. My hand was steady. My stomach was not. I could have said something. I could have stopped the whole table cold. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I stared at the 2 missed calls on my phone, cleared my throat, and got up to go refill my drink. As I stood, Greg raised his cup. "To Michelle, our very own mystery woman of American education." Laughter echoed behind me as I walked toward the bar. I was halfway back from the bar with a fresh club soda when Greg spotted me again. Of course he did. He was standing near the dessert table now, holding court like he always did at these things, talking way too loud with a drink in his hand he hadn't paid for. "There she is," he called out, grinning like a game show host. "Come on, Michelle, break it down for us." What do you actually do? Because curriculum strategy specialist sounds like something you made up while watching a PBS marathon. I didn't flinch. I took a sip and walked over like nothing was wrong. I wasn't about to let him drag me around this party like a chew toy. I looked him dead in the face. "I design large-scale education reform strategies, mostly literacy-based. I work directly with state departments of education and federal partners on implementation." That shut him up for half a second. Then my uncle, Uncle Dale, who still called Wi-Fi the internet machine, snorted and shook his head. "So, you're writing book reports and calling it policy?" he said. "Sounds like college homework with extra steps." More laughter. I caught my dad's eyes from across the room. He was in the middle of a handshake and didn't move. Just looked away. Greg wasn't done. "If you're such a big shot, how come you don't live in DC? Why are you working from a 2-bedroom rental in Charlotte like a broke grad student?" The words hit harder than they should have. Not because he was right, he wasn't, but because the whole table leaned in again, ready for the next punchline. I glanced at my phone. Another buzz. "Need briefing, doc, and community rollout timeline ASAP. Meeting in 15 minutes. I typed back without hesitating. "At venue. Send team here. Private room available." "Texting your book club again?" Greg asked, sipping his drink. "Let me guess. Secret mission from the Ministry of Alphabet Soup?" Jamie laughed so hard she spilled something on her dress. I didn't respond. I locked my phone, slid it back into my purse, and looked at Greg like I was staring through glass. "You know," I said calmly, "the fact that you don't understand what I do doesn't make it fake. It just makes you underinformed." He blinked. "Okay, Professor." I turned to my aunt, who had been mostly quiet until now. "Remember the national push last year to redesign early literacy frameworks in Title I schools? My team wrote the foundation for that. It's been picked up in 32 states so far." "Title what?" she asked, eyebrows raised. Federal education funding for schools serving low-income students. Greg scoffed. So you're just moving around PowerPoints for the government? I didn't even blink. Sure, PowerPoints that direct billions of dollars in federal policy. Uncle Dale waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. I don't buy it. Nobody from this family ends up writing laws. This sounds like some inflated nonprofit thing where everyone's got a fancy job title and no one does any real work. Dale, my aunt said under her breath. He shrugged, unapologetic. I checked my phone again. Message from Maya, my project coordinator. Copy team en route. It's around 8 minutes. Good. Greg leaned back in his chair and smirked. So, what happens when the government finds out you've been faking it all this time? I was done explaining. You'll see, I said, and walked toward the front desk of the club. I had just reached the front desk and asked the hostess for a quiet room when my phone rang again. Loud, sharp, everything in me stilled. Caller ID, Dr. Renee Caldwell. I didn't hesitate. I answered and hit speaker. Hello, doctor. Caldwell. The second I said her name out loud, it was like someone pulled the plug on the entire room. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Chairs stopped scraping. Forks hung in midair. I turned slightly, scanning the stunned faces, making eye contact with no one. Michelle, Caldwell said, clear and steady. I need your help. The secretary just moved our closed-door meeting up. I'd like a live strategic brief now. Key metrics, swing states, updated outreach impact, the works. Can you walk me through it on site? I'm ready, I said. I'm at my father's retirement event. Venue's called Hillside Country Club. Private room is available. Team should be arriving soon. There was a pause. Perfect. I'll see you in 10, I hung up. The silence behind me still hadn't broken. Greg was standing near the fireplace, holding his drink like it might jump out of his hand. He stared at me, completely frozen. My dad had moved closer during the call. He wasn't saying anything, just standing there, arms crossed, mouth tight. Not angry, more like confused, like someone just swapped out his daughter for a stranger. Then Jamie, because of course it would be Jamie, finally spoke. Wait, she said, loud and slow. The Literacy Commission? The way she said it, like she was trying to make it sound small, still mocking. But her voice cracked at the end. She knew. I walked past her without answering, headed straight to the private room down the hall. The hostess held the door open. You can use the Oak Lounge, Miss Jenkins, she said. I nodded. Thank you. I'll need coffee service in here in full privacy when my team arrives. No interruptions. Yes, ma'am, she said quickly, eyes wide. I placed my laptop bag on the polished wood table and started setting up. HDMI cable, wireless clicker, hard copies of briefing docs from my binder. No part of me shook. My fingers moved fast, like they'd done this 1,000 times. Because they had. Then someone shouted from the patio doors. Michelle? I stepped out of the room just in time to see 3 large black SUVs roll into the parking lot. Tinted windows, government plates. You could feel the heat shift. People backed away from the windows like they didn't want to get caught looking. The front SUV parked right outside the main entrance. The back door opened. Dr. Renee Caldwell stepped out first. Tailored navy blazer, low heels, not a hair out of place. 3 aides followed, each carrying document cases or rolling bags. One of them had a tablet in his hand, already tapping away. They walked straight into the club like they owned the place. Greg took a full step back. Holy! Dr. Caldwell spotted me instantly and smiled. Michelle, good. Are we set up? Just finished? I said. Private room's ready. She looked around. Her eyes landed on my dad, standing stiff by the drink table. You must be Mr. Jenkins, she said, holding out her hand. He blinked twice, then stepped forward and shook it. Yes, ma'am. I've had the pleasure of working with your daughter for over 2 years, Caldwell said. She's one of the sharpest policy minds I've ever met. My dad said nothing. His grip on her hand lingered just a second too long. Caldwell turned to the rest of the room. We'll only need her for a short while, folks. Thank you for the hospitality one by one. My family awkwardly stepped forward. Uncle Dale wiped his hand on his pants before shaking hers. Jamie stammered out her name like she was in line at a job fair. My mom said something about sweet tea and offered drinks no one accepted. Greg stood frozen, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I met his eyes for half a second before turning back toward the Oak Lounge. Caldwell and the team followed me in without missing a beat. I closed the door behind us. As I closed the lounge door behind us, Caldwell turned to her aides and motioned for them to start setting up. Charts, policy drafts, federal rollout timetables, everything hit the table fast. She opened her tablet and scanned the email I'd forwarded her minutes earlier. "This is tight work, Michelle," she said without looking up. "Your literacy impact model? We flagged it for the Senate subcommittee briefing next week. Your projections are now the benchmark," one of the aides chimed in. Congressional research is using her numbers in their next round of economic overlays. They just emailed back. Caldwell nodded. "Not surprised. Your last forecasting model had a variance of what? Under 2%? 1.7, I said. She finally looked up and gave me a sharp smile. "Nationally recognized benchmarks, Michelle. You understand what that means, right?" I just nodded once. I wasn't about to get emotional in front of this team. She leaned over the table. "You've anchored the entire left side policy arc on this bill. Without your models, we don't move forward. The secretary knows it. I've said it in every closed door I've walked into this month." There was a knock at the door. I opened it. Greg stood there, still looking like someone had slapped him and he hadn't recovered yet. His tone was low for once. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Caldwell glanced at me, then waved me off. 3 minutes. I stepped into the hall, pulling the door mostly shut behind me. Greg scratched the back of his neck, voice just above a whisper. "Why didn't you ever say it like that?" My arms crossed instinctively. "I tried. You all just thought it was cute." He blinked, took a breath, but didn't push it. I turned to go back in, but then I heard my mom behind us. "She's not playing dress up after all," she said softly. Not to me, just out loud. I turned and saw her standing next to my dad by the fireplace. He still hadn't sat down. Jamie had joined them. All of them were watching the door like they were waiting for the next twist in some movie they didn't understand. Caldwell opened the door before I could say anything. "We're moving upstairs," she said. "Private lounge has better AV and more space for the briefing. Can your team find it?" "They're here," I said. "Already got the docs preloaded." She turned to the room full of stunned guests, like she was announcing lunch. "Thank you again for sharing your space." "We won't be long," no one answered. I started walking toward the staircase with her, heels clicking on the hardwood floor. My laptop bag swung from my shoulder. I could feel the heat of every stare, like everyone had suddenly remembered I existed, but couldn't figure out where I'd been hiding all this time. As we passed my dad, he opened his mouth, then closed it. I kept walking. Greg didn't say another word. Upstairs, the private lounge had already been cleared out for us. My team had connected to the wall screen. Maps, projections, and funding impact graphs flicked across the screen like a silent movie. Caldwell sat at the head of the conference table and nodded for me to begin. Downstairs, the party kept going. But no one would forget what just happened. The door shut behind us, and the noise from downstairs disappeared like someone threw a blanket over it. I walked to the head of the table, clicked on the first slide, and pulled up the district readiness map. Caldwell leaned in. Her team spread out their notes, already tracking. "Starting with Phase 1 rollout districts," I said. "Red zones are underperforming by more than 25% in early literacy benchmarks. We modeled 3 intervention tracks: curriculum upgrade, staff retraining, and tech support, and ran a 30-month forecast." The screen shifted as I clicked. "These are projected gains with federal support and full compliance," I said. "If the bill passes, we'll close the literacy gap in these districts by nearly 40% within 2 years. Caldwell nodded, her hand already jotting notes. "Which states see the biggest boost?" "Mississippi, Arizona, West Virginia, also Ohio." "Ohio's key," her aide chimed in. "Senator Lynch is soft number. She keeps asking for more voter-facing data." "I've got it," I said. "My team just ran a new community poll last week. 73% of parents support full literacy funding across party lines. Lynch's district came in at 79. I slid a folder down the table. "Breakdown by county." She'll flip once she sees it. Caldwell opened it and scanned fast. This is exactly what we needed." "What about the opposition side?" I clicked again. "Here's where we'll hit friction," I said, pointing. "Rural districts where charter school lobbying groups hold influence. They're already spinning it as federal overreach and counter." "Local autonomy clauses baked into the bill," I said. "We emphasize community-driven adaptation. Push that language in the next media round." Another aide scribbled notes like a machine. Caldwell looked at me, impressed. Your clarity's cutting through everything. If we get these 3 swing votes, Lynch, Garcia, and Marlowe, this passes by a hair. It will, I said. We've lined up key endorsements from the Pediatric Health Coalition, 2 former state superintendents, and the National PTA. I can give you quotes tonight. She sat back, processing. This is why I asked you to lead strategy, she said. You don't just build the structure, you make people believe in it. I didn't say anything. I just kept clicking, rolling into legislative impact stats, how federal funding would affect curriculum access in low-income schools, bilingual literacy support, digital infrastructure grants. Her team asked hard questions. I answered fast. They pushed numbers. I adjusted them in real time. We argued over language, over rollout timing, over the public messaging plan. No one held back, not even me. 2 aides left halfway through to prep talking points for the secretary's meeting. An hour and 42 minutes later, Caldwell closed her binder and stood. This was solid, Michelle. Best I've seen, I nodded once and shut my laptop. We'll finalize Senate prep by Thursday, she said. But today, you gave us the firepower to close. Then she smiled, real and rare. You saved the bill. I came down the stairs with my laptop still under one arm. The lounge door clicked shut behind me. Everything in the main room had shifted. Same music, same dim lighting, same buffet trays. But the noise? Gone. People talked in low murmurs now, heads together like they were swapping secrets. No more laughing, no more book club jokes. Just silence that sucked the energy out of the air when I walked past. I didn't say anything. I just made my way toward the back table where I'd left my purse. My dad was standing there, holding a full plate. Chicken, salad, 2 rolls. When I reached him, he offered it to me without a word. I took it. My eyes met his. He didn't speak, but his jaw tightened like he was holding something in. Not anger, not pride either. It was something closer to awe, maybe shame. He just nodded once. I nodded back and sat down. Before I could get a bite in, Greg showed up. He came over slow, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes darting between me and the half-empty punch bowl. His mouth opened twice before any words came out. Hey, he cleared his throat. I didn't mean to. Earlier, I was just messing around. I didn't know it was real. I looked at him. His whole face had changed, shoulders slumped, voice low, none of the usual smugness. You don't need to apologize, I said, cutting my chicken. I don't need that. He blinked. Okay. I need respect. That's it. He didn't answer at first. Then finally, you got it. I mean it. I believed him for once. He wasn't performing now. He looked like someone who'd gotten slapped in the face with reality and didn't know where to look next. He walked off after that. Didn't say another word. Didn't need to. My mom sat down next to me quietly, holding a coffee she hadn't touched. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Are we ever going to understand what you really do? I smiled a little, but I didn't soften it. Probably not. But I can explain it to you. She tilted her head, curious but cautious. My team's job is to design how literacy programs get built across the country, I said. That means everything from funding models to curriculum to political strategy. We figure out where the gaps are, what works, and how to scale it. She blinked. So, it's not just reading plans? It's how reading exists in schools, I said, and who gets left out when it's done wrong. She looked down at her coffee. I thought you were just consulting. I am. That's what consulting is, Mom. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She reached for my hand and just held it for a second. I let her. Then, from 2 tables over, Uncle Dale stood up. His voice wasn't loud this time. Michelle, he said, arms crossed. I was wrong. Every head turned. I thought you were bluffing. Guess not. He gave a weak shrug. You're really doing it, huh? All that federal stuff? Yeah, I said, keeping my voice even. I am. He gave a dry chuckle. Well, hell. Guess I'll shut up now. No one laughed. No one had to. He meant it. Jamie avoided eye contact. Her fiancé looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. I finally took a bite of chicken. It was cold. Didn't matter. Around me, the room stayed quiet. No more jokes, no more fake smiles. Just a room full of people realizing they'd spent years underestimating the wrong person. The applause started slow, too slow. Dr. Caldwell had just stepped out of the upstairs lounge. heels clicking down the staircase like she owned the place. Her aides followed, briefcases shut, laptops packed, already halfway out the door. She paused at the edge of the main room and looked around. "Before we go," she said, clear and calm, "I just want to say something." Everyone turned. Chairs shifted. Forks hit plates. "Michelle's analysis," Caldwell continued, "is what's helping unlock funding for millions of students across this country. Her work is why this bill has a shot." I sat frozen, still holding my fork. My mom stiffened beside me. Greg stood against the wall, not moving a muscle. Caldwell didn't look at me. She stayed facing the room. Her voice didn't change tone. It wasn't sentimental, just matter of fact. But that somehow made it hit harder. Her models have become the backbone of our federal strategy. Every major committee we've met with has asked for Michelle's forecasts by name. She's not just supporting policy, she's shaping it. That's when Greg finally spoke. "Wait," he said, eyebrows up. "You mean like Michelle's recommendations determine how the money's used?" Caldwell turned to face him, completely unfazed. "That's exactly what I mean." He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at me like he didn't recognize who I was anymore. Caldwell added casually, "She also turned down a private sector offer that would have tripled her income. We're lucky she chose to stay in public service." A murmur rippled through the room. Aunt Lisa actually gasped. Jamie looked over at me like she was waiting for a punchline that never came. Then I heard my mom's breath hitch beside me. She didn't say anything, just pulled a napkin from the table and wiped at her eyes, quietly. Again. Greg dropped into the chair across from me, slow like he'd just been shoved into it. "You turned down?" He stopped himself. "Why would you do that?" I just looked at him and said, "Because the private sector doesn't care if a second grader in West Virginia learns how to read." He didn't respond, not right away. He just looked down at his hands. The clapping started after that. One person, then two, then a few more. It wasn't loud or wild, just stiff, awkward, like everyone wasn't sure if they were allowed to clap for someone they'd mocked an hour earlier, but they did it anyway. Caldwell gave a small nod, then made her way toward the front doors. Her team followed without saying a word. As they stepped outside, I felt the room exhale. And for once, no one was looking at me like a joke. They were just watching, finally seeing. By the time the last guests left, the energy in the room was all but gone. Nobody rushed out. Nobody stuck around either. Just quiet clinks of silverware and hushed voices drifting from corner tables. I rolled up my sleeves and started stacking empty plates with my mom and Aunt Lisa. No one asked me to. It just felt easier to stay moving. People kept glancing my way, like they wanted to say something but weren't sure how. Some smiled awkwardly. Others gave those little nods you give to someone who's just proven you wrong in front of a crowd. My mom wiped down the dessert table while I loaded up another tray. "I didn't know they had people like you doing that kind of work," she said suddenly. "It always sounded like something fake," I said. "I know." She gave me a sad little smile. "I'm proud of you, Michelle. I hope you know that Aunt Lisa came up behind us, arms full of folded tablecloths. "I told your mother years ago that you were doing something important," she said. "I just didn't know it had that many zeros attached." I laughed once, short and dry. Neither did Congress until this year. Behind us, Greg was clearing glasses from the drink station. He kept looking over like he was still trying to wrap his head around it. Then he came over and leaned on the table next to mine. "So, who decides what states get the money first?" he asked. I looked up. "It's a mix. Some of it's based on need, like literacy gaps, poverty rates. Some of it's political, depends on how the legislation's written." He nodded slowly. "And you write those parts?" "My team drafts the language. Lawyers clean it up. Lawmakers take the credit." He actually smiled at that. Not the smug grin he used to throw around, but a real one. "What happens if a school district ignores the new plan?" "They lose access to federal funding," I said, "and get replaced on the next pilot cycle." He let out a low whistle. "That's serious." "Yeah, it is." He picked up a tray of glasses and took them to the kitchen. No punchlines, no sarcasm, just doing the work. I turned back to the table, wiping it down in tight circles. My dad came over and set down a stack of folded chairs beside me. He didn't look up when he spoke. "I should have asked you about all this years ago." I kept my hands moving. "It's easier to laugh than believe, I guess." He finally looked up. "Not anymore." That was all he said, but the weight in his voice said enough. I nodded once. We didn't hug, We didn't need to. For the first time in a long time, they weren't trying to shrink what I did to something they could understand. They were just letting it be what it was, and they were finally listening. Thanksgiving at my parents' house always smelled the same: roast turkey, burnt rolls, and that one cinnamon candle my mom lit, no matter what season it was. This year, though, the air felt different. The literacy bill passed 2 weeks ago. $1.6 billion locked in for reading programs, curriculum upgrades, and early intervention systems. My strategy memo was cited twice in the House hearings and once in the final Senate statement. They used my language, word for word. The whole family knew. I didn't have to bring it up. Greg showed up with a new girlfriend, Sarah, a second-grade teacher from Asheville. Sweet, nervous smile. Shaky hands when she hugged me. "This is my sister, Michelle," Greg told her, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She writes the plans that change national education policy." Sarah blinked. "Oh, wow, that sounds kind of fake." Greg grinned. "It's not," he said. "Trust me." I caught my mom watching him, eyes wide like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. All afternoon, people asked real questions. My aunt pulled me aside to ask how schools get chosen for rollout. My cousin Matt asked about voter data and party messaging. Even Uncle Dale wanted to know how the Senate vote flipped. No jokes, no eye rolls, no sideways glances. They were finally trying to understand, not just tolerate. Later that night, I stood in the kitchen with my mom, scraping plates into the trash. Her eyes were tired, but she looked peaceful for once. She handed me a pie dish, and I rinsed it under the tap. From the hallway, I heard my dad's voice. "She's the smartest person in any room she walks into," he was saying to the neighbor from down the block. "I mean it. She knows how the system works before they even finish writing it." My hands froze over the sink for a second. Then I finished rinsing the dish and set it on the drying rack. I didn't need another apology. I didn't need a speech or some dramatic moment. They believed me now. That was enough.